Business process management, optimizing companies' operations, this is not new concepts, okay?
No.
They are, 20, 15 years old, 10 years of really, right, wide adoption. What this year brings to the table, because I know, right, AI going mainstream, and yet we still see a lot of projects, right, lots of projects failing. We see adoption challenges, right? So
Yeah.
what's your experience and how fast AI will be adopted this year?
Yeah, so like in 2022, right? So AI is a hot topic, and automation is a hot topic as well. But AI, the things that I'm seeing and the teams that I've been working with and kind of on the side talking to, a lot of times the AI doesn't do any automation, at least from the automation sense of like using RPA and some of that. What it's doing is they're building the training data. So they basically take the data and say, hey, let's build a training model. Out of that training model, let's go do the regressions and do the polls and make sure we can actually literally put the data out there to run items against it. And then over time it works, but then over time you start to see a variance come in and they get a little bit more spread, and then the data doesn't quite match the test data or the training data anymore. And the issue there is because, like, again, back in the beginning, if you don't have those processes documented and those processes being input correctly, or where it's driving the data forward to give and serve up to the AI, it's not going to have accurate data every time. And when you automate that, you're basically QAing that from the start. You're building quality into your data, because you're not going to have the ability of us, myself typing in something wrong or doing something that maybe I'm not following the process, that there is a process. And humans, we tend to kind of go our own way or carve our own path. This is the reason why you see a large square grass field, but you see like a line cut right down the middle of everybody walking down that cross street. So like they cut the path because it's a shorter path, right? So this way you keep that data very strong and you keep it very static to where it can be changed because of the processes and because those variables that have already been discussed are now being pushed along to the AI. So yeah, I think overall that's where things are going. That's why we see some other things around AI not always working out. The other thing to just bring up is I usually talk about the culture of it all, right? So your company culture, your team culture, a lot of things, we all see different projects and sometimes they fail, and sometimes they fail because of culture, because of the company or because of the team or because of the organization. And the reasons of why, it goes back to understanding sometimes like the agile methodology, understanding the data analytics side, the democratization, data driven mechanics of like how to take your data from one store or one location to another and keep it very accurate, right? So culturally, and the reason why I bring that up on the automation side and towards the AI side is because culturally, if you're trying to make a change in your company's culture or your organization's culture, it's much easier. What I found, at least, it's much easier to do with automation. So with automation, you're teaching users and upskilling them to know, here's why documenting this process makes sense. And by documenting it, I can then get it automated. And by automating it, I'm now taking the stress out of my life. And by taking the stress out of my life of doing these reports every week and month, I'm now happier, and I'm going to look for other things and innovate to help drive that forward. And then I'm going to tell my friends about it, and they're going to drive that forward. And overall, everybody kind of wins because they're saving time. And it's really what we want. At the end of the day, we want to have meaningful work and not be stuck doing something we know how to do but we don't want to do, right? So we're trying to mitigate those mundane tasks and those stressful tasks out of the way so that people can have more meaningful work.
For sure, for sure. Yeah. So any examples? I mean, any like inspiring examples when solution automation solution, right? As small or as big, because we know, right? Companies start with small projects, right? You got
Yeah.
to start somewhere, maybe less mission critical, right? Before you have ambitious goals out there. So any examples that, we can share out there just to illustrate.
I mean, there's tons of examples, right? I mean, everybody's automated from anything from how invoices work to how emails and everything. So the biggest thing about automation that's neat is the fact that it's going to mimic whatever a human could do. So if I can log in and I'm on a computer and I want to go grab some Excel work document or any other kind of stuff from a database and then pull that information in, churn some of that, do some conditional formatting, and then send that out and email that to people. So can a bot process, so can that automation, all of that can be done. And then that all serves up another function and purpose. But where does it start at? It starts, the easy place to start is always like, a lot of people say like the low hanging fruit, but what does that mean? That means basically like this simple, very simple task. Like, so you want a POC, like a proof of concept, and then you want to take that proof of concept, you want to kind of grow that and say, okay, we did this one function really well, we see that it works, it's solid, let's build like an MVP, like a minimal viable product of that, and then show really what this automation can do and handle and work for more teams. Like, say if you have one team that has one thing that they're like, hey, this is a pain point of ours, can we really automate this? Great, now let's automate it. You get it automated, then you find out it's not just that team, it's 30 other teams need this same kind of functionality. Well, then let's go work at those and then get those teams enabled so that you can just recreate. And the best thing about automation is not just a bunch of code tossed in, hundreds of lines of code. It's coding, but it's object coding. It's where you can kind of see where it's going. There's frameworks and if then else statements and try statements so that you can actually see what's happening. You can build in variables very easily, and you can also build in assets in some regards, depending what platform you're using. And these assets can be used to say, hey, if you're going to google.com today, but tomorrow you want to go to bing.com, it's like 3 clicks, and then you can make the change and everything's fine. The bot or the process will run just fine by changing that asset. So things like that, and then the fact that it's very auditable is why automation and RPA and all that works very well, because you can see the changes, you can see the change tables, you can see what was changed at any given time, and a lot of that's not really built into the AI sense yet. That all has to be kind of programmed in. So if you use the automation side ahead of it, you get a lot of that, like again, quality checks and a lot of that the really good work to be done ahead of time.